The entire Premier League, including you, have forgotten how good Unai Emery really is. It went terribly wrong at Arsenal, but it might just go perfectly at Aston Villa.
A goal difference of 0 after 13 games. Nah, mate.
So looking at his previous successes and his first game versus Manchester United, I'll discuss the question, is he just a cup manager or is he on the race to European football in the West Midlands? Steven Gerrard has a 32% win percentage in the Premier League and Unai Emery ups that to 55%. This is genuinely one of the biggest jumps in quality between two managers since Everton replaced Duncan Ferguson with Carlo Ancelotti. Moving away from a very successful time at Villarreal, swanning along the shores of western Spain, which I can assume is like the rest of Spain, but west. And now he's itching to go to the Premier League, and he's found himself in Birmingham.
Peaky Blinders.
Unai Emery brings a sense of footballing prestige to Aston Villa, and it was certainly reflected in his first game versus Man United. Aston Villa 3, Manchester United 1. Not a bad start. And actually, Villa took advantage of Dallow's positioning because he often likes to play quite high and drift into central areas at times, which allowed for Ollie Watkins to drift over to that right channel and create chances from there. And actually, 4 of the 5 goals that Villa scored versus Man United across the 2 games came from that exact weakness that had been identified by their new Spanish grandfather. It was a victory that came with a statement of intent behind it, but Unai Emery is looked at like a failure in the English game, that despite his previous successes, he's a manager that just can't quite hack it in the hardest league in the world. Self-titled. His tenure in North London is deemed as quite a dark time for Arsenal, a real low, but despite this, he actually achieved his highest win percentage record of his entire career in England, so surely we're severely underestimating the man. I'll touch on his time in England in just a minute. See, for a long time at Aston Villa, their slightly dry Scouse brother was in charge, so it was about time they brought some real experience to Villa Park, with a hint of tapas. And not only do I think it's the correct move for Villa, it's also in line with the direction the club has been moving towards for a few years now. Before the summer, Aston Villa had a 221 million net spend over the past 5 years, which is the 6th highest in the Premier League. And now that they've got top quality players like Diego Carlos, Dendoncker and Coutinho now fully on their books, their movement in the transfer window has screamed nothing but please take notice of us. And not just from clubs in England, but from around Europe. Aston Villa desperately want European football, and Unai Emery is the perfect fit for that. But Emery didn't move for the money because he turned down Newcastle just a year ago. He chose Aston Villa because he sees a potential in the squad. I mean, let's not forget what the bloke has achieved. He's a 4-time Europa League winner. He's won everything there is to win in France and a Champions League semi-finalist. There's no doubt he knows exactly what to look for. So let's look at exactly how he did it. See, he usually sets up in a dynamic 4-4-2 that when in possession of the ball shifts to a 3-5-2-1. Football. It's a back 3 with one of the fullbacks offering their attacking threat, with the opposite winger driving forward and drifting into central areas, all while having defensive cover in that midfield 3. And God, does Emery love a counter-attack. If you didn't understand any of that, neither did I. This will and has been replicated at Aston Villa. Lucas Digne is your attacking fullback that can get forward. Matty Cash can drop into a back 3 with Concert and Mings at times. Leon Bailey is an attack-minded winger that can find space in central areas, all while Ollie Watkins can mirror what Moreno did in Spain and drop deep and create chances from there. On the other hand, I might be really smart, because that's exactly how they got their first goal versus Man United. But this can go wrong, and it can go wrong for a couple different reasons. See, often the football that Emery likes to play can lead to players having to learn new positions, and while the change isn't drastic, from the outside it can look like players are being played out of position, and combine this with the football sometimes being labelled as unadventurous, I can definitely see this creating frustration within the fans. So now, let me take you back to the last time El Maestro found himself in the Premier League, and from the outside, it looked alright. Arsenal ended up finishing the season in 5th and missed out on Champions League football by 1 point just behind Spurs. This will ruffle some feathers, but Arteta's never officially done better. That combined with their first European final since 2006, from the outside it looked like it was going well, but on closer inspection it was all a bit of a mess. He was accused of being incredibly inconsistent, and the identity of the football club was lost as Emery changed tactics and formations constantly without no rhyme or reason, and confused fans as to what to expect from this supposedly new look Arsenal. And suddenly El Maestro became El Fraudo and he was sent packing back to Spain. So it's clear that Unai will have to change at Aston Villa, and he'll have to change quickly. And part of that change is by sticking to his principles and his systems and not changing them. Okay, you got that? So, you know, don't do what you did at Arsenal, but at the same time, do what you did at Arsenal and don't change by changing, okay? It's not that difficult. It's no secret, Villa fans don't have much patience. They expect a performance and they're difficult to please. Your dad has told me similar things about your mum. So it was about time they brought in a handsome, Spanish, experienced man to show him how it's done. And Villa have done the same thing. The football Emery plays requires an understanding and patience. The real threat to this appointment is the Villa fans, so I wouldn't be surprised that despite the huge results, and trust me, there will be huge results, that El Maestro won't be on the touchline for a generation. The managerial talent in the Premier League continues to grow, and Unai Emery is a big addition to that. But Aston Villa isn't Emery's home, and Emery isn't Aston Villa's hero. So I think Emery is going to be a stepping stone for Villa, a stepping stone towards European football, and a stepping stone towards elite tactical coaching. They will become an underdog, and they will overperform time and time again, similar to Wolves and West Ham of previous seasons. They'll be a threat for those European spots, and if we let Claret and Blue into the Europa League, then they might just have the perfect man on the touchline.